Today's episode of the Totally Rad Show is brought to you by Carbonite. Today on TRS, Wes Anderson comes at us again with his very unique style of filmmaking with Moonrise Kingdom.
Today in movies, we are talking about a movie that's out in limited release right now. I believe it's just New York and LA. Maybe it's open wider by the time actually you're seeing this review. I do not know. It's called Moonrise Kingdom, and it is the latest movie from director Wes Anderson, whose only his last two movies we've talked about on the show. The last one was Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was a stop-motion animation. It's been a while since we've seen a live-action movie from him.
Yeah.
I felt while I was watching it. Darjeeling was one of our first years.
6 years ago?
It was the first year we did the show.
Yeah.
And Moonrise Kingdom is about a analog, set in the 1960s, a young Boy Scout essentially, but there's another name for it.
Khaki Scouts.
Khaki Scout. The scout leader is Edward Norton. And this young newcomer, Jared Gelman, plays a khaki scout who escapes from his troop and meets up with a young girl, the daughter of Bill Murray and Frances McDormand, on this secluded island.
Nantucket-esque
Yeah,
island.
right. And they go on an adventure. It's as I said, it's set in the 60s. It has a very handmade, crafted feel the way that Wes Anderson does so well. And I do want to say, this is what I was thinking when it's been such a long time since we've seen a live-action movie from Wes Anderson. And since we've last seen one of his movies, a lot of movies have come out that people compare to Wes Anderson, like, or directors, Jason Reitman, others like Jared Hess, who does Napoleon Dynamite,
sure.
And it struck me, and Ryan Johnson, director of Brothers Bloom, Brick, and seeing a Wes Anderson, I've never felt that way, and seeing this movie, I was reminded of just how
no one's like him.
Yeah, no, he really. People think just because people have 2D very symmetrical frames that like that's not the way he makes a movie is extremely specific.
Yeah.
It's almost as if their dollhouse. The whole movie's a dollhouse.
I feel like
and people are being moved and positioned, and
which is Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I feel like this movie definitely, even more than his previous movies, comes from that experience. I think is influenced by his experience working with Fantastic Mr. Fox. It seems to me, but
go ahead.
I happen to love Wes Anderson. I know he's a polarizing figure for a lot of people. I know that if you don't like that aesthetic, if you're not into that sort of affected, very stylized presentation, I recognize how that could be off-putting to people. Very much so. For me, all his movies feel like the stylized elements of them. It feels like not how something is, but how I remember it to be. It's how my imagination, how that moment felt, rather than how it actually was. It's not naturalistic. It is how it felt to be in that moment. And this movie, more than I think any of his other films, is about that. Nostalgia. I wasn't alive in the 60s, so it's not the time period, but the fact that it is an old time period, and it is about youth, and it is about that feeling when you're a kid of everything is larger than life, and every emotion you feel is 10 times what that emotion feels, and there are no limits to what you can imagine or do. And this whole idea of running away from home, and this very much Romeo and Juliet story. My God, I fell in love with this movie. I adore it. It feels like a fairy tale, and every part of it builds in that feeling that I'm watching something that is more about the feeling of how it must be. Like, oh God, when I was a kid, yes, I had that, and how books were for me, what they meant to me, and how, everything is kind of yellowish, and how adults seemed to act, and all of that through that prism of these wonderful performances, these wonderful little kids that Wes Anderson managed to get these just charming, true, beautiful little performances out of. This is a very special movie to me. I think it's one of my favorite movies of the year, and it might be my favorite Wes Anderson movie, and that's saying high praise for me. I really like his work, and this just felt magical and fairy tale, and there are things that happen that are wildly impossible, that are like something you'd see in Fantastic Mr. Fox, like a frame with a silhouette of people hanging. It's stuff that only dolls could do, but somehow it all works because it feels like a fairy tale. It's much more of a fairy tale for me than Snow White was, which we saw a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's funny. It really does. I didn't really think about it being more Fantastic Mr. Fox than his previous movies, but it totally is, and it totally has that same kind of fun aesthetic of, you can just kind of make. I mean, there are even moments that feel like they were scenes from Fantastic Mr. Fox, like finding the hole and like he flew the coop. Like I feel like that was in Fantastic Mr. Fox, and now we're seeing it in live action. I felt at the end of this movie exactly how you felt throughout the movie, but I did not feel that throughout the movie, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It was a movie where I was sort of like, this is enjoyable. This is nice. I like this. The kids, I love that all the performances are great. There were moments that I kind of chuckled, but I wasn't, it was just like a really good movie. And then at the end of the movie, it was like, oh, wow, that affected me more than I had thought while I was watching the movie, if that makes any sense. So it's, not my favorite Wes Anderson movie. I think that's still Rushmore and probably will be for a while.
That's what competes with that.
Yeah. But it was really fun and it was interesting, and it's always good to go see a movie that's not this huge bloated budget studio tentpole picture, which we've basically been seeing week after week after week after week, some successfully, some not successfully. So it's nice to sort of be like, oh, there are people out there that are sort of making these sweet, fun, quirky movies that really do feel handcrafted. Yeah. And, there is something about Wes Anderson that the aesthetic is just, it's almost like putting on an old shirt. Like you just go, oh, yeah, that guy. You know what I mean? Like Bill Murray being wacky, dry Bill Murray. Oh, it's so nice. Why would he be chopping down a tree? You know what I mean? But then take that joke six years down the road. You know what I mean? Like it just, everything feels like, and there's nothing in this movie that is not there for a reason, even including the crap that's hanging on the wall in the back of the shot. Like everything has a purpose. And so it's really just sort of like being immersed in this world. I would love to see him tackle a superhero movie. I would love to see what the Batcave looks like if Wes Anderson's directing it.
An interesting discussion to think what would be the right superhero for him to do.
Exactly. But for me, it's like that, we talked about this with Avengers, where it, was, with Nolan's Batman and now with Avengers, was really the superhero movies where you felt like a person who had a vision and a way of speaking and a way of showing stories through the lens of the camera were tackling these movies. And I feel like, man, it would be a joy to see a Wes Anderson superhero movie.
It would probably be a lot like Kick-Ass, actually.
Well, yeah, maybe. But anyway, so great movie. But again, it didn't. While I was watching the movie, I was a little bit like, all right, okay, yeah, this is cool, but I'm not really in it. But then by the end, I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah, that was an experience I'm glad I had.
It's interesting too. I wanted to say I didn't mention up front that not only have other people felt his presence in other filmmakers, which I sort of disagree with, but I think he's had a cultural impact since, like we were just joking about hipsters off camera.
Yeah.
And I think that really had its start with
Royal Tenenbaums
filmmaking.
is hipsters.
Yeah, I mean, all
Rushmore.
Yeah. But so
prototypical hipster.
It's interesting to see
Ascot's not comically.
Seeing it again, seeing his filmmaking again, and going, oh my God! And there's almost something like, even just when you look on Vimeo and you see the films that people are making with their own video cameras at home, like so much of it reflects his sensibilities, his music choice, even music. There's the big band Mumford and Sons, and indie rock is so, I think, was influenced by his filmmaking, and now we're seeing him make a movie again. But I also want to say too that what's also very interesting is that I think he's very obsessed with kids speaking like kids,
sophistication.
Kids speak like adults in all of his movies. And what was interesting,
but it's that feeling when you're a kid of trying to be sophisticated.
And that was what was fascinating in this movie is that it's about being a Boy Scout, which is pretend army, and it's pretend adult. And I remember that so well of being a kid, and I wanted to be all the whittling and all those things. Is like I want to be like the grown man, I want to be a man, and it worked so well with the conceit of all of his filmmaking is like about the content and the filmmaking were perfectly suited for one another.
I agree.
To be about that, like trying to be, even the kids in a coming of age tale, they're trying to be like, they're having an adult relationship as kids. It's different than Stand By Me or Kevin and Winnie in the Wonder Years, other coming of age movies where the relationship is very kid-like. This is about kids pretending to be adults, which is what Boy Scouts is, which is what Rushmore is like. It's about all his filmmaking.
You make a good point because I think people often, justifiably so, focus on the visual style and overlook how great the script is. And there are wonderful parallels between the Frances McDormand, Bruce Willis relationship and the relationship with the kids, and how
it's okay can you run away?
Exactly, and that wonderful scene in the bathtub with her, and how there's a lot of really complex things layered on top of what is a sort of grand fairy tale, larger than life feeling. It is really beautifully written and beautifully structured, and I think it's.
I should say too, he wrote it with Roman Coppola, who's awesome,
who's
doesn't make enough movies, but
collaborator. Yeah.
Cool.
Fantastic, Mr. Fox.
All right, everybody, be sure to stick around. We're going to be answering one of your Twitter questions right after this. But first, we want to thank our sponsor. Carbonite protects your files from computer crashes, fires, theft. You can accidentally delete files. I've done that.
Stupidity. It protects you from stupidity.
That's literally what it does. By automatically and continuously backing up your files and keeping them securely off-site, you'll never have to remember to back up again.
And that's the biggest thing about stupidity. The stupidest thing I do is not back up.
Yeah, it's forgetting.
It's not even forgetting. It's I think of it and I go,
I should back up.
I'll do it later.
Yep. Carbonite.com.
Yep.
Whether you have one or two computers at home, maybe you have a roommate's got a computer, back up. Bang! Or several computers, a small business. You own a Shakey's, and there's 6 computers there.
Is it a backup? Bam?
Bam! And then wash your hands after you back up.
You should.
Really,
they're greasy chicken.
Cleanse La Palma or whatever I see in all those Mexican restaurants. Carbonite is the better backup plan, people. There's over 1 million customers that trust Carbonite to protect their homes or Shakey's. Computer with plans starting as low as, get this, $59.
You know how much Shakey's food you can afford if you save your money that way?
$59 a year. I'm not saying a month, I'm saying a year. That's like nothing.
It is.
Nothing.
It's like 2
Start
pizzas.
your free trial. It's like less than 2 pizzas. Start your free trial at carbonite.com with the offer code TRS, and you get 2 BOMOs, bonus months, for free if you decide to buy. That's carbonite.com, offer code for 2 BOMOs, TRS.
Oh, good deal.
Also, we are going to be at Comic-Con.
We are going to be at Comic-Con.
Friday.
8 p.m.
We want to see you wearing your TRS swag. Even if not Friday, we want to see, that's how we know who's out there in the wild.
Let your geek flag fly.
Jinx.com/TRS to get your awesome TRS.
Yeah.
We have
if you see us,
stop us.
Stop us and say hi. And if you got a TRS shirt on, you definitely better say, guys,
you might get a free fist
check
bump.
it. Yeah.
Bam. Speaking of
or
like
at
this.
least a reduced price.
Like this.
Check us out tomorrow for Versus.
Today's Twitter question sent in with the hashtag #TRSQ. All right, the pound and the hashtag are the same thing. Sorry. Is Brett Commander at .com, 2 T's, 2 M's. If you could only go to one geek convention each year, what would you choose? Is there possibly an answer?
I would go PAX.
You would what?
PAX is great, but
You wouldn't go to Comic-Con?
I think PAX is the most fun.
PAX is the
And
most.
You wouldn't go to Comic-Con.
By the way,
Interesting.
Comic-Con, I can, all those stuff, most of the stuff. First of all, I think it's on a wane.
Yeah.
I think it's on a wane.
Yep.
A Wayne's World.
A Wayne's World, and I think most of the stuff I can read or see.
We're gonna be at
or
Comic-Con,
see,
guys. Come and see us.
after the fact.
Right.
PAX, the experience is what is incredible. You can't really.
Interesting.
And you do
That's
get
ki-
some
I think-
hands-on. I mean, that's PAX 33. You get specific hands-on. You don't get hands-on at Comic-Con. You watch something.
Of the ones we've been to, I think I'd probably agree with you. If I interpret this question as being, if you could go to any geek convention, all expense paid, anywhere in the world, I would go to Essen, Germany.
Yeah, right.
The world's
Board game
largest
thing.
board game thing. It is supposedly mind-numbingly enormous. It makes Gen Con and Dragon Con look like teeny little blips. But I would love to go to Gen Con and Dragon Con. I've never been to either of those either. But Essen is like a dream. That's on my bucket list of geek
Yeah, I
things.
think if it was the ones that we go to on a regular basis, I might agree with you about PAX. I wish there was more
You
stuff
were,
to buy. With Comic-Con, I love the I can buy all these crazy things, but then I went to Long Beach Comic-Con, I went to WonderCon, I feel like, well, it's all the same stuff.
We buy things from PAX way more often than we buy things from Comic-Con.
No, I know, but I feel
We
like
come home with
that's true.
time streams.
time streams. Thank you. Thank you, Brad.